Hello, this is a screencast on home assessments and you. So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at the importance of an appropriate home, how occupational therapy can help, thinking about the person, the environment and the occupation, look at occupational performance, home visits and developing clinical reasoning, how can professional bodies guide your practice, and wide aspects of home visiting. So not all homes are equal, so you'll go out to homes when you're working in the community that are in different areas depending where you work, and different levels of deprivation. So you'll have some homes who are quite affluent and then other homes who are quite deprived, and it's preparing yourself really, because when you're walking up there and you're knocking on that door, you really don't know what's behind that door, and it's having that acknowledgement that there is inequality in our society. So some homes are not equal regards to financial aspects, but also some homes are not equal regards to accessibility. So we've got some homes that have been, made custom made especially for that person, and they'll have great access. And they've got other homes who might have 3 flights of stairs up, or long winding paths or uneven surfaces. So accessibility can be very different. I always remember working as an OT and when you got there and you were dealing with a 80-year-old lady with falls and she had 15 steps to contend with even before she get in the property, your heart sank a little bit. So where does occupational therapy fit? The primary goal of OT is to enable people to participate in activities in everyday life. So we come across people when they're experiencing something in their lives, a life event that's happened that's affected their independence, they'll be feeling vulnerable, and it's down to us to try and get them back into the activities of life that make them happy and that's meaningful to them. So the PEO model, you've got the person here, you've got the environment and you've got the occupation. And the middle here is about occupational performance. So the idea is if you've got balance with all those, then you've got them meeting their occupational performance. But if something happens to them on a personal level, or if they have a change of environment, or something happens regards to their meaningful occupation, any imbalance in any of those 3 areas will affect occupational performance, either negatively or positively. So the person, you've got to think about the health, condition, disability and the functional ability. Think about their own personal characteristics, the weight, the height, their age. The emotional behavioural characteristics, so think about mood and motivation. Think about the family or friends and the support network they've got. Think about any professional support they've got. So you as an OT would need to know what other workers are involved. So have they got a social worker, a community matron, speech language therapist, physiotherapist. And the most important thing when you're dealing with people is not to make any assumptions. So don't just assume when you get a referral for a lady who's 100 years old that she's going to be in a care home and having everything done for her, because I've met people in there, I remember a lady who's 100 years old who came to my falls prevention class and gave some of the 60-year-olds a run for the money regards to exercise. So, and don't just assume when you get a referral for somebody with schizophrenia that they're going to behave or act a certain way, and even making assumptions on where people live and things like that. We all have biases, and we sometimes even have biases that are called unconscious bias, and I think it's important that you're aware of that because it will affect that, not making assumptions. Got to think about the external environment, think about what local amenities they are, transport links, thinking about the families, the carers, how close they are, level access and surrounding to the property, and think about the surrounding area. Think about the gates, you've got to think about the width and the state of repair. Dropped curves, that's thinking about for access for cars and wheelchairs. Think about parking, parking stress, we all know about that, and hard standing. The ramps, I think about its gradient and upstands and handrails. Paths, are they sloped? Do they slope up or down? And also think about whether they're even or whether it's an uneven surface. your external doors, you'll be looking at grab rails, clear width thresholds, front and rear, and steps, the number they are and where they are. The garden, think about whether it's enclosed front or rear, and you'd also want to think about the access to the garden. So there's a lot of things for you to consider there when you're out looking at people in the people's homes in the community. So what are your initial thoughts? If you were going to a home visit here, what would you think to here? So just pause it a minute, pause this screencast a minute, and just write down what your initial thoughts are about whether when you'd go somewhere like that or whether you'd go somewhere to the second property. So now you'd have a think, if this was me going here, first of all I'd be thinking, what floor are they on? Are they on the first floor or the second floor? I'd be thinking it's quite good access here, we've got a little grab rail there to get in. Looks quite a nice clear street for parking. Looks quite well kept, so the gardens are quite well kept, so obviously people taking pride in that, in the gardening. And then I'd be thinking how big the property is inside, and if it's a flat, everything's going to be on one level. For somebody, say for instance, if they had mobility issues, everything's going to be on one level for them. So they'd have the bedroom, the bathroom, everything, the kitchen on one level. If I was visiting here, I'd be thinking parking might be a bit of an issue. We've got a step up there as well, and we've got no grab rails or anything to hold on to. Also, it looks like a terraced house, so you'd be having stairs. It could be quite narrow stairs. Is there an additional rail for people to hold on to? Also, the doors look quite narrow as well, so thinking about people getting through if they're in a wheelchair or if they've got walking aids. And this is probably a bit of an unconscious bias from me, but it looks quite deprived to me as well, maybe a bit run down. So yeah, they're the kind of things that would be going through my mind. So I wonder if mine corresponded with your thoughts. So think about the internal environment. So you think about the corridor, the size, the layout, the storage. Internal doors, have you got clear width, position of pipes, meters? So you've got, OTs, we've got to think, even got to get our plumber heads on as well as all our other hats on. Think about supporting walls when you're fitting grab rails. You've got to make sure that it's a solid wall, and also obviously when you're fitting hoists. The number of rooms, thinking about the layout downstairs. The kitchen, think about the size, the table, the space, and whether you've got lowered worktops. Staircase, is it curved, straight? Is there a landing? Think about stair lifts and banisters. When you think about the landing, think about the layout. If they've got a frame or a walking aid, do they need any turning space? Bathroom, think about the level access shower. We've got a shower over the bath, whether there's a turning area, whether there's a grab rail, whether there's where the toilet is, where the wash basin is. Because obviously we've got to think about that, because if you're going to fit any equipment, you've got to take that into consideration. And think about the bedrooms, the number and size. So, what would you think about this picture here to show you this? So if you pause it again, the screencast, and then I'll come back to you with my thoughts. So if this was me going in as an OT, I'd be thinking there were a few trip hazards here with the towels on the floor. It looks quite cluttered. There's lots of things here on the shelves that could be knocked off. I'd be wondering about medication and checking whether they're taking the medication on a regular basis. Looks like this is hanging off the wall as well, so you're wondering about whether they're able to keep up with sort of day-to-day repairs. Toilet seat looks quite sort of like it's seen better days, and again questioning whether they're able to with the upkeep of the house and repairs. So maybe not just thinking about them from a physical point of view with the trips, but also the mental health as well, as to, it looks like it's maybe they're not managing with things regards to sort of household chores and keeping things tidy and like repairs. This picture here, I'd be thinking it's a very narrow staircase. I'd be wondering if this was a solid wall, whether they need an additional rail on there. This looks a bit tricky at the top here. There's a very narrow turning space there, so if they were to turn, I think that was a bit of a falls risk there. And also visually, that carpet's not great because it all just seems to blend into one. So whether you could put some tape here and here just to distinguish the stairs a little bit more. Maybe paint the banister a different colour as well. So think about occupation. So you've got to think about the personal activities of daily living. Think about how they're able to wash and dress and personal hygiene. Domestic activities, so thinking, are they able to get shopping in? Are they able to cook for themselves and the cleaning around the house? Leisure, so what are their hobbies? Have they got any pets? Do they enjoy sports? And work, always ask the work question. Something that was really, really important. Thinking about whether they're in paid employment, voluntary work or education. So as a therapist, we understand the relationship between the person, the occupation and the environment and ways of adapting the environment to ensure the best fit. So when you're out on a home visit, you're thinking about the assessment of the complex health needs. You want to include the service user and the family as much as possible. Access visits are where they're not actually with you, but you're just going out just to sort of look and suss things out a bit and look at some of the things that we've suggested before. You need strong clinical reasoning skills. An adapting environment is taking equipment to minor fixings and adaptations to minor or major and modifying the existing environment. We're not going to do this case study because this is a screencast. So other issues, you might want to think about medicalisation of the environment. So when you are suggesting all these pieces of equipment, people might not want, big, chunky, horrible, clinical looking pieces of equipment in their bathrooms. And I always used to say, the way I used to get around it is, I'll advise you, it's up to you what you do with my advice. And if they choose not to have it, that's their choice. As long as they've got capacity and they understand the implications around it regards to risk, then that is their choice. So, like this big ram, I'm not having that in my house. And it's all about your approach. If you try and impose something on somebody, then they're going to just put the barriers up. So you can use some of your motivational interviewing, and it's how you word things and how you put things can have a massive impact on whether people are willing to take on board your suggestions. So think about professionalism on your visits. So obviously we've got the COT that guides us. We've got the Healthcare Professionals Council. Professional standards indicate those elements of practice which determine whether it's judged to be good. So professionalism, promote and protect the interest of your service user, communicate appropriately and effectively, work with the limits of their knowledge and skills, delegating, respect, managing risk, reporting concerns, being open when things go wrong, be honest and trustworthy, and records of your work keep a close record of your work with service users and carers and do that in a timely manner. Values is about being respectful, non-judgmental, maintaining dignity, cultural sensitivity, language barriers, mention mental capacity, anti-oppressive practice, trustworthy, and equalities. And I like that quote there about integrity. I have the moral courage to make my actions consistent with the knowledge of right and wrong. Practice and policies, so thinking about health and safety, confidentiality, data protection, safeguarding, prevent, which is something around terrorism, management, expectations, and fulfill your commitments. If there's anything I've read there that you don't feel sure about, it might be worth going away and reading up on it, because policies can be something that we shy away from. Practicalities, so home visit toolkit, what are your ideas, what are the tools, what are the skills, and home visit etiquette. So summary, we thought about the home, we thought about occupational therapy, PEO model, clinical reasoning, professionalism, toolkit. So if you've got any further questions, make sure you speak to your module lead about that, and I hope that's been useful, and there's your reference list.